The chamber of the Galactic Council was a masterpiece of silent technology and ancient architecture. It was designed to make the beings within it feel like they were floating in the heart of a nebula. From the central podium, stars and the swirling blue-green marble of World G233 were projected in perfect detail. Jinwoo, a xenobiologist, adjusted the data slate in his hands. His human-like features, common among the Council's many humanoid species, were tight with concentration. On the slate, information about the planet below scrolled in a steady stream. "Green Shore," he began, his voice calm and clear in the translation field that surrounded each delegate, classified as a Category 3 garden world. Its primary points of interest are not its landmasses, but its oceans and deep soil. Our scans indicate massive, undisturbed deposits of luminite. A soft murmur moved through the council. Luminite was the reason for the meeting. The crystal was the key to faster-than-light communication. Every advanced civilization needed it, and new sources were rare. Mira, the lead diplomat for this sector, leaned forward. "And the inhabitants?" she asked. Her tone was practical, cutting to the heart of the matter. Jinwoo tapped his slate. A new image appeared. It showed a simple, peaceful village. Wooden and stone homes were built along the edge of a forest. Fields of crops waved in a gentle wind. People walked along dirt paths. "A single colony of baseline humans," Jinwoo stated. "They arrived approximately 5 standard generations ago. Their technology is minimal. No orbital infrastructure. No energy signatures beyond basic solar and thermal. They are pre-FTL and appear to live an agrarian, communal lifestyle." The image zoomed in on 2 figures standing in a field. One was a man with a calm face, pointing towards a section of plants. The other was a woman, her hands stained with soil, nodding as she examined a leaf. "The community leader appears to be a man named Tae-ho," Jinwoo continued. "His primary function seems related to botany and agriculture. The woman is Sumin. She manages their basic engineering and power systems. Our long-range observations show no signs of social conflict, military structure, or advanced industry." Mira smiled. It was a polite, diplomatic smile. "So we have a valuable world, occupied by a harmless and primitive group. The law is clear. The Galactic Council can claim mining rights for critical resources, offering the native inhabitants protected status and compensation." Jinwoo did not return the smile. "Harmless and primitive are observational terms, not conclusive ones. Our scans are surface level. We have not studied their biology in depth, their cultural belief systems, or their interaction with the planet's unique ecosystem. Greenshore's life signs are unusually vibrant." Mira waved a hand gently. "All garden worlds are vibrant, Jinwoo. The humans are farming. They are building small homes. They are not bending space-time or crafting plasma weapons. They are surviving. We can offer them more than survival. We can offer them advancement, medicine, and a place in the galactic community. In exchange, we take the luminite they don't even know exists." Another delegate, a being with shimmering scales, spoke. "Is there risk? Military risk? From the humans?" Mira asked, almost laughing. "Our security scans show nothing. No shipyards. No weapon factories. Their most advanced tool is a metal plow. The risk is not in action, but in inaction. If we do not claim this resource, another faction might. One less compassionate than us." Jinwoo felt a knot of worry in his stomach. "We are missing context. Why did this group of humans choose this specific world? Why have they not progressed technologically in 5 generations? Nature abhors a vacuum, and evolution abhors stagnation. Their stability is itself an anomaly. Or it is simplicity," Mira countered. "Not every species dreams of stars, Jinwoo. Some dream of quiet sunsets and good harvests. Our duty is to manage the galaxy's resources for the good of all, which includes guiding younger species." The debate continued, but Jinwoo could see the direction. The council was made of practical minds. They saw a valuable crystal and simple people in the way. The idea of a hidden threat seemed like a story for children. The promise of progress and wealth was real and tangible. Finally, the vote was called. A soft, blue light glowed around each delegate's station as they cast their decision. The central hologram displayed the result. An overwhelming majority in favor. The decision was made. The council would make first contact. They would send an envoy ship into orbit. They would begin the process of offering protected status and drafting the mineral accords. It was standard procedure. It was civilized. Mira stood. A wise decision. We will extend the hand of friendship. The humans of Greenshore will thank us for it, in time. Jinwoo looked back at the projected image of the planet. It looked so peaceful, so green. He looked at the two humans, Taeho and Sumin, standing in their field. They were not looking at the sky. They were looking at the earth. He closed his data slate, the worry in his gut unresolved. He hoped, for everyone's sake, that Mira was right. He had a terrible feeling she was not. The council's envoy ship, the Whisper of Dawn, slipped into orbit above Greenshore. It was a beautiful vessel, sleek and silent, designed to inspire awe, not fear. On the bridge, Jinwoo watched the sensor data flow across the screens. The planet's biosignatures were even stronger up close. A constant, rhythmic pulse of life that seemed to breathe with the planet itself. All systems are nominal, the ship's pilot said, initiating standard deep-spectrum scan for mineralogical mapping. Pulse will penetrate to the planetary mantle. Proceed, Mira said from her command chair. She looked satisfied. This was the first step in a smooth administrative process. A low thrum filled the ship as the main scanner activated. An invisible wave of energy, harmless to biology but powerful enough to see through rock, lanced down from the ship, pierced the atmosphere, the forests, the soil. It shot through the bedrock and into the planet's deep, dark oceans. For a moment, nothing happened. The scanner data began to compile, painting a rich picture of the luminite veins deep below the seafloor. Then, the ocean below the ship's position began to change. It was not a physical disturbance. No water moved. No waves grew. Instead, the very color of the deep sea shifted. A pale, blue-white light began to rise from the black depths, like a submerged star waking up. The light did not scatter or fade. Coalesced. What is that? Jinwoo asked, leaning forward. His instruments were going wild, not with danger readings, but with impossible biological and energy signatures that flickered between categories. Some kind of bioluminescent bloom? The pilot guessed, his voice unsure. But it was not that. The light rose until it was just beneath the surface of the water. Then it lifted. It was not a creature breaking the water. It was as if the light itself became the water, and the air, and then finally a form. It hung in the sky before the Whisper of Dawn, level with the bridge viewport. It had no fixed shape. It flowed like liquid silk made of starlight. Sometimes it seemed like a vast, gentle whale. A moment later, it was a swirling pattern of roots and branches. Then it was a simple sphere of serene, cool fire. It made no sound, but a pressure filled the ship, a feeling of immense age and quiet attention. Every alarm on the bridge fell silent. The hum of the engines softened to a whisper. It was as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Mira stood up, her diplomatic composure cracked by sheer wonder. A life form, an immense one. Before anyone could speak, a voice filled their minds. It was not heard with ears. It was felt in the bones, understood in the heart. It was calm, deep, and carried the weight of epochs. It spoke in the native language of every being on the bridge perfectly. You are new. The statement was simple, an observation of fact spanning millions of years. Mira, gathering herself, opened a communication channel. We are the Galactic Council. We come in peace to this world. The being, Hanul, pulsed softly. Peace is a state, not an action. Your action was a probe, a shout in a silent place. Jinwoo found his voice. We meant no disturbance. We are studying this world. The light shifted, focusing on Jinwoo. He felt seen, not just his body, but his curiosity, his caution. The student understands more than the speaker. Hanul's thought voice intoned. Then, it turned its focus back to the ship, to Mira, to the purpose that hung around them like a scent. You look at the bones of this world. You see the glitter below and not the life above. You see the small ones who walk the soil and think you see all. Mira stepped forward. The humans. We wish to help them, to share the galaxy with them. A wave of something like sadness, vast and slow as continental drift, washed over them from Hanul. You do not understand. You are children with tools you did not make in a house you did not build. This world is not dormant. It is a cradle, and you are touching the lid. The silence that followed was heavy. Jinwoo's blood ran cold. A cradle. Mira pressed on. We pose no threat to the cradle. Our intentions are benevolent. Hanul's form contracted, becoming brighter, more intense. The voice in their minds became clear, sharp, and final. It was no longer an observation. It was a warning carved into the fabric of the moment. Then hear this, children of the council. Do not antagonize them. Withdraw. This world is not dormant. It is a cradle, and you are touching the lid. The word them hung in the air. It did not mean Hanul. It meant the humans. Antagonize them? Mira whispered, confused. They are simple farmers. But there was no more time for questions. Having delivered its message, Hanul's light began to dim. The beautiful, terrifying form unraveled, the starlight flowing back like a retreating tide into the ocean below. In seconds, the sky was empty again, just the normal blue sky and white clouds over a calm sea. On the bridge, the normal sounds rushed back. The hum of the engines returned. Console lights blinked. The crew let out a collective breath they didn't know they were holding. Mira slowly sat back in her chair, her mind racing. She looked at the planet below, so peaceful. She thought of the humans with their simple tools and quiet lives. Then she looked at Jinwoo, whose face was pale. A guardian, Mira said, her voice regaining its certainty. A planetary guardian beast, is trying to protect its territory. It used the humans as a moral shield. A clever bluff. Jinwoo stared at the empty spot in the sky. It wasn't bluffing. It was pleading. It wasn't afraid for itself. It was afraid for us. Mira shook her head, a firm, decisive motion. She had a procedure to follow. A council mandate. A guardian spirit, no matter how old, was not in the legal documents. It was an obstacle, not a verdict. Continue the mission, she said to the pilot, her tone leaving no room for debate. Prepare the first contact protocol. We have a job to do. The Whisper of Dawn stayed in orbit, but the atmosphere on the bridge had changed forever. Below, in the village, Taeho paused while watering a plant. He looked up at the sky, squinting. He had felt something, a deep, familiar vibration in the earth, like a great old friend sighing in its sleep. Then it was gone. He went back to his work, a faint line of concern on his brow. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was not a place of panic. It was a place of order, of debate, of measured response. Yet, the image of Hanul, and the echoing words of its warning, had introduced a ripple of chaos into the perfect calm. On the central display, the footage from the Whisper of Dawn played again. The serene, terrifying light, the silent communication, the final, clear warning. Mira stood before the assembled delegates. She looked composed, but there was a sharp energy in her eyes. She had been the one addressed. She had felt the ancient presence. She needed to define it to control the story. The being is clearly a remarkable discovery, she began, her voice smooth and confident. A life form of immense age and energy, possibly tied to the planet's luminite core. Its defense of its territory is understandable, even admirable. But we must not mistake a guardian's growl for a strategic threat. Jinwoo sat in his assigned seat, his data slate cold in his hands. He had compiled every sensor reading, every energy fluctuation. They pointed to something far beyond a simple guardian beast. The entity's consciousness had interfaced directly with the ship systems, with their own minds, without resistance. It wasn't protecting territory. It was delivering a message it considered vital. A delegate from a silicon-based species clicked its hardened limbs together. The warning was specific. Do not antagonize them. It referred to the human inhabitants. This requires analysis. And we have analyzed, Mira replied swiftly. She brought up images of Greenshore's surface. There was Taeho showing a child how to prune a fruit tree. There was Sumin fixing a simple water pump with basic tools. The subjects of the warning are a pre-industrial agrarian society. They lack unified planetary governance, offensive capabilities, or even radio communication. What precisely are we being warned not to antagonize? Their feelings? A murmur of agreement, tinged with relief, went through a section of the council. It was easier to believe in a protective animal spirit than in a hidden threat from such simple people. Jinwoo stood up. Respectfully, Delegate Mira, we are missing the point. The being, which I propose we designate Hanul, from an old word for sky, did not say, do not attack. It said, do not antagonize. It warned against provocation. This suggests the danger is not in what the humans are now, but in what they might become if provoked. Mira gave him a patient look. Become what, Jinwoo? In 5 generations, they have not become anything more than farmers. Their evolutionary path appears static. Their technology is stagnant. The being's warning was metaphorical. It sees us as a disruption to the natural balance. It used the humans, the most sympathetic element, as the face of that balance. The logic was clean, bureaucratic, and dismissive. It turned a cosmic warning into an environmental impact statement. Jinwoo felt frustration bubble inside him. We are interpreting a message from an intelligence that may be as old as this galaxy through the lens of our own politics and fear. We are assuming it speaks in metaphor. What if it speaks in plain fact? The plain facts, Mira said, her voice taking on a harder edge, are these. The luminite deposits on Greenshore are essential for continued galactic stability. The human colony is small and lacks any claim to the planetary resources under Council law. The being, Hanul, is an unknown factor, but it has shown no direct aggression. It issued a warning which we have heard. Our task now is to proceed with caution, not with fear. She brought up the proposed plan. We will enact a controlled interaction protocol. No weapons. No forced relocation. We establish a gentle orbital presence. We mark the resource zones for future mining, well away from the human settlement. We offer the humans a generous package. Advanced medicine, agricultural aids, full council protected status. We are not antagonists. We are benefactors. If the humans are as peaceful as they appear, they will accept. If Hanul's warning was about direct conflict, we avoid it entirely. The vote was called. Jinwoo watched the lights glow around the room. His own vote, a stark red no, in a sea of calm blue yes lights, looked like a single drop of blood in water. The decision was overwhelming. Myra's plan was approved. As the council session ended, Mira approached Jinwoo. Your caution is noted, Jinwoo, and it will be heeded. You will be part of the planetary survey team. Watch the humans. Study them. If there is any sign of this latent danger, you will see it first. Prove your theory with data, not philosophy. Jinwoo nodded slowly. It was a concession, but it felt like a punishment. He was being sent to watch the cradle, knowing the council was already tightening its hand around it. Back on the Whisper of Dawn, en route to establish orbit, Jinwoo looked down at Greenshore. The planet was a masterpiece of life, a vibrant, breathing jewel. He thought of Hanul's words. This world is not dormant. It is a cradle. A cradle held something that would grow, something that would wake up. He looked at the village. He saw Taeho kneeling in the soil, not with subservience, but with a kind of quiet conversation. He saw Sumin not just fixing a pump, but understanding the flow of the water, the tension of the metal. They were not stagnant. They were focused. They were deeply, utterly connected to something the council scanners could not measure. The council saw a simple garden. Hanul saw a cradle. Jinwoo, for the first time, wondered if they were both right, and that was the terrible part. A garden was peaceful, but a cradle was waiting. And by deciding to stay, to push, to gently interact, the council had just decided to see what would wake up. The first changes on Greenshore were quiet, clean, and legal. From orbit, the Whisper of Dawn released a dozen marker drones. They fell through the sky like silver seeds and planted themselves in the soil with soft thuds. Each drone activated, projecting a shimmering blue grid into the air, marking the boundaries of Luminite Mining Zone Alpha. The grid was harmless light, a legal symbol. It cut through a forest of towering, broadleaf trees 20 kilometers from the human village. On the ground, Teho was the first to see it. He stood at the edge of a field, a basket of seeds in his hand, and watched the strange light flicker between the distant trees. It was not a natural color. It did not move with the wind. He put the basket down and walked back to the village center, his pace steady but his mind racing. By the time he gathered the elders, more drones had landed. Zone Beta was marked to the south, in rolling hills where the humans gathered a particular moss for medicine. Zone Gamma appeared to the east, in the shallow coastal waters where they fished. That afternoon, the council made contact. A small, graceful shuttle landed in a field just outside the village. Mira stepped out, followed by Jinwoo and 2 non-armed attendants. The humans gathered to meet them, not with fear, but with a watchful curiosity. Teho and Sumin stood at the front. Mira smiled her diplomatic smile. She used a small device to translate her words into the human language. Greetings. I am Mira of the Galactic Council. We come in peace as friends. We wish to speak with you about the future. Teho nodded slowly. We saw the lights in the forests and over the water. What is their purpose? They are markers, Mira explained, her tone warm. They show areas of special minerals deep beneath the soil, minerals that are very important to the stars. The Galactic Council would like to work with you. We can offer you many things in exchange for the right to carefully collect these minerals. She gestured, and an attendant brought forward a display. It showed images of advanced medical scanners, sleek vehicles that floated above the ground, tools that could reshape rock with a thought, medicine that can end all disease, machines that can build stronger homes, knowledge from 1,000 worlds. The humans looked at the images. They did not show excitement. They showed a kind of sad understanding. Sumin spoke, her voice practical. You wish to dig under the forest? Under the hills? With great care, Mira assured her. The areas are far from your homes. You would not be disturbed, and in return your people would gain so much. You would become part of a grand community of stars. You would no longer have to struggle. Teho looked at the projected image of a floating vehicle, then at his own 2 hands, stained with earth. We do not struggle. We live. The forest you wish to dig under is the home of the tidal trees. Their roots clean the river that waters our fields. The hills where you placed your light grow the healing moss. The bay is where the silverfish spawn. These things are not separate from us. They are part of the balance. Myra's smile remained, but it grew tighter. We understand your connection to the land. That is why we offer you better tools to manage it. You can have purified water from a machine, not a river. You can have synthesized medicine far superior to moss. Jinwoo watched the human faces. He saw no greed, no awe. He saw a wall of polite refusal being built from simple logic. They were not rejecting advancement. They were rejecting a trade that made no sense to them. Why take a machine's water when the river's water was good and needed the forest to stay clean? We thank you for your offer, Teho said, his voice firm but not unkind. But we cannot agree. This world provides what we need. The balance provides. We do not wish for these changes, or for you to dig. The meeting ended with polite words but a clear result. The humans refused. They asked for the marker lights to be taken away. Mira, still perfectly polite, said she would bring their words to the council. Back in orbit, Myra's calm facade dropped. They are sentimentalists, she said, reviewing the encounter. They are attached to their simple ways. They do not see the bigger picture. They see a different picture, Jinwoo said quietly, one where the parts are connected. Sentiment is not a legal argument. Mira stated. The council has granted resource rights. We have offered more than fair compensation. Their refusal is regrettable, but it does not change the law. We will proceed with the soft pressure protocol. The next day, the marker drones began emitting a gentle, low-frequency hum. It was not painful. It was not harmful, but it was deeply annoying to the local wildlife. Birds avoided the zones. Small ground animals moved away. The sound was just noticeable enough to make the marked forests feel unwelcoming. A week later, small atmospheric regulators were deployed. They subtly altered the humidity and temperature over the marked zones, aiming to gently encourage the humans to focus their farming elsewhere. The moss on the southern hills began to grow more slowly. The council was not attacking. It was not invading. It was applying gentle, persistent pressure, the kind used to guide stubborn children or uncooperative animals. It was the quiet, bureaucratic form of antagonism. On the ground, Taeho and Sumin stood at the edge of the humming forest. They could feel the wrongness in the air, the subtle discord. They are not listening, Sumin said, her face hard. No, Taeho agreed. He placed his hand on the trunk of a tidal tree. He felt a faint, distressed vibration in the wood, a reaction to the unnatural hum. They speak of friendship but do not hear our words. They offer gifts but only if we give up our home. He looked at Sumin, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. The gentle pressure was a message. The council would not take no for an answer. The peace was over. A line had been crossed. It was not a line of violence, but of respect. And once respect was gone, a different kind of conversation had to begin. The council's sensors on Greenshore were programmed to detect specific things: energy weapon signatures, large metal constructions, explosions, organized troop movements. They were not programmed to watch plants grow. In the village, life changed its rhythm. There were no meetings under angry skies, no speeches about defiance. Instead, Taeho and Sumin began to walk the land. They did not go to the humming, marked zones. They walked the edges. They took samples of soil where the artificial dryness from the regulators met the natural damp. They collected leaves from plants that trembled at the edge of the sonic fields. Jinwoo in his orbital lab watched them. His orders were to study the human reaction. He expected despair, protest, or finally, a delegation asking to renegotiate. He did not expect this quiet, intense fieldwork. Sumin took the distressed plants to her workshop. It was not a lab with gleaming surfaces. It was a spacious, open shed filled with drying herbs, clay pots, and wooden tools. She began to cross-pollinate plants, not with genetic splicers, but with a small brush and infinite patience. She was not just breeding for yield or taste. She was listening to what the plants needed. She sought the ones that grew tough, woody roots in dry soil, or leaves that thickened in response to strange sounds. Taeho worked with the mycelium networks, the vast underground webs of fungus that connected the forest. He carefully introduced samples from the agitated zones to resilient fungi from the deep, healthy woods. He did this in beds of rich soil, whispering to them, tending them like children. He was not issuing commands. He was asking for cooperation. Weeks passed. The council's gentle pressure continued. The drone hum persisted. The regulators kept the designated zones mildly arid. The humans did not break. Then the first change appeared. Around the perimeter of Zone Alpha, where the blue grid light met the forest, a new type of vine began to grow. It sprouted from the soil with astonishing speed. Its leaves were broad and waxy, a deep purple color. As it grew up the trees at the forest's edge, it did not harm them. Instead, it seemed to weave a living net. And when the sonic hum from the marker drone hit it, the vine's leaves shivered and changed angle, scattering the sound waves, breaking them up. The effect was small, a circle of quiet only a few meters wide. But it was there. Jinwoo's scanners noted it as a minor anomaly in acoustic readings. He focused his cameras. He saw the vine. He saw Taeho visit it, touch a leaf, and nod thoughtfully. This was not an accident. Then came the response to the atmospheric regulators. In the area south of the village, Where the regulators were sucking moisture from the air, a low, hardy shrub began to dominate. It was a plant the humans had used for making rope. Now its stems grew thicker, and its leaves developed a fine, silvery fuzz. Jinwoo's thermal scans showed something remarkable. The fuzz was reflecting the sun's heat back towards the regulators in a focused, diffuse pattern. It was fighting the artificial drought not by holding water, but by trying to overheat the machines gently, subtly stressing their cooling systems. They are gardening a response, Jinwoo whispered to himself, a chill crawling down his spine. He compiled a report. Subjects are utilizing accelerated, directed plant adaptation as a countermeasure to non-lethal environmental pressure. Mira read the report on the bridge. She frowned. So they are good farmers. They are adapting their crops. This is a sign of intelligence, not a threat. It proves they can learn to work around our activities. You're not understanding, Jinwoo said, his voice tense. They aren't just growing different crops. They are engineering ecosystems in real time. They are guiding the evolution of local flora to perform specific, defensive functions. They are using biology as a toolset. Before Mira could answer, a new alert chimed. It was from Zone Gamma, the coastal marker. The underwater drone there was reporting a malfunction. Its lens was obscured. Visual feeds showed the crystal-clear water now clouded with a vibrant, greenish pollen. The pollen was thick, and it clung to the drone's sensors. Analysis showed the pollen carried a mild, conductive charge. It was shorting out the drone's external optical systems. The source was a kelp-like plant that had grown over the marker in a dense mat. This kelp usually grew slowly. Now it had grown meters in weeks, and was releasing clouds of this obstructive pollen directly onto the Council's equipment. They are targeting the markers, Mira said, her eyes narrowing. This is deliberate interference. Not with weapons, Jinwoo pointed out, his mind racing. With biology. They've weaponized pollen. They've turned a vine into a sonic baffle. They are communicating, but not with words. They are communicating with consequences. They are showing us that for every action, the ecosystem itself will have a reaction. On the planet, Sumin stood by a new bed of fungi Taeho had cultivated. These fungi grew in dense, black clusters. When she touched one with a small metal tool from the council shuttle they had been given, the fungus pulsed and released a tiny, localized electromagnetic pulse. The tool's display flickered and died. She looked at Taeho. The deep ore, the luminite, it resonates with energy. If they try to dig, these could make their machines confused. Taeho nodded. He looked up at the sky, where the whisper of dawn was a distant speck. They wanted to talk about the future. Now they are. They are talking with sound and dry air. We are answering with vine and pollen and pulse. They still think they are having a conversation with people. He placed his hand back on the soil, feeling the vibrant, responding life beneath his palm. They are having a conversation with Greenshore, and Greenshore is just starting to speak. Jinwoo's lab on the Whisper of Dawn was filled with a chaos of data. Screens showed shifting genetic sequences of Greenshore plants, real-time maps of anomalous electromagnetic fields, and energy signatures that flickered between biological and mineral. The quiet, watchful study was over. He was now a detective at the scene of an impossible crime. He had isolated the pollen from the coastal drone. Under magnification, it was not simple plant dust. Each grain had a microscopic, crystalline structure that acted like a capacitor, building and releasing a charge. It was a biological machine grown in weeks. The vine from the forest edge was worse. Its cellular structure had adapted to vibrate at a precise frequency that canceled out the council drone's hum. It hadn't evolved this. It had been guided to it. The humans were not just breeding plants. They were performing a kind of accelerated, symbiotic evolution, directing the planet's life to solve specific problems. Mira stormed into the lab, her diplomatic calm finally shattered. They have disabled 3 more marker drones. The one in the hills is being strangled by roots that secrete a corrosive sap. It's not an attack. It's a systemic rejection. That's exactly what it is, Jinwoo said, pulling up a planetary scan. The glowing blue grid of council claim markers was now fringed with angry red anomalies, the biological countermeasures. You provoked them, not with violence but with disrespect. And their answer is not war. It's a rewrite. A rewrite of what? Mira snapped. Of the rules, Jinwoo said, his voice low with awe and horror. He brought up his final analysis. We were wrong about everything. Humans are not technological supremacists. They are not warriors. They are biological and cultural paradox engines. Their primitive state wasn't a lack of progress. It was a chosen equilibrium, a balance they maintained with conscious, deliberate care. He pointed to the village below. They don't build factories because they don't need to. Their technology is the ecosystem itself, and they are its master cultivators. Antagonism doesn't trigger them to build missiles. It triggers a deep, evolutionary survival protocol. Radical, uncontrollable adaptation. They weaponize their surroundings through symbiosis. Greenshore isn't their home. It's their body, and we've just given it an immune response. Mira stared at the screens. The evidence was undeniable. The peaceful garden world was transforming into a fortress of thorns and pulses and acid. All grown, not built. Hanul, she breathed. Hanul wasn't guarding the humans, Jinwoo said, the full truth settling on him like a weight. It was containing them. Or perhaps it was containing this. The potential for this. Its warning wasn't to protect the humans from us. It was to protect us from the humans. From what they become when you push them out of their balance. They are a reactive power. A psychological and biological minefield. You don't defeat them. You provoke a transformation until you can no longer exist in the same space. On the surface, the change was becoming visible. The forest around Zone Alpha was now edged with the thick, purple vines, creating a soft, silent wall. The hills of Zone Beta shimmered with the heat-reflecting shrubs, creating mirage-like hazes that confused sensors. The shore of Zone Gamma was an opaque green from the pollen kelp. Taeho and Sumin walked through a new grove of trees. These trees had bark that peeled in metallic-looking strips. Sumin tapped a trunk with a scanner. The reading showed the bark contained concentrated luminite particles, drawn up from deep groundwater and sequestered in the living wood. The very mineral the council wanted was being pulled out of the ground and locked away inside a growing forest. They will not be able to mine it without killing the forest, Sumin said quietly. And the forest will not die easily. Taeho looked up. The sky seemed farther away. They thought the prize was in the ground. But the ground is alive. They did not listen to Hanul. They did not listen to us. Now they must listen to the world. Back in orbit, the council ship received a direct, laser pulse transmission from the surface. It was not on any standard channel. It was a simple, clear data packet. Contained no words, only schematics. Biological schematics. The genetic blueprint for the corrosive root sap. The molecular structure of the charged pollen. The growth pattern of the sonic dampening vine. It was a message. A final, devastatingly polite message. Here is what we have done in a few weeks, it said without saying. Imagine what we will grow if you stay. Accompanying the files was a single, still image. It was a picture of the village, peaceful and unchanged. In the foreground, Taeho held a seedling. In the background, the strange, new forest of metal-bark trees grew tall. Mira sat in her command chair, the data glowing before her. The silent, simple meaning was clear. The humans were not fighting a war. They were winning an argument. They were changing the question. The question was no longer, will you share your minerals? The question had become, can you survive in the garden we are now growing? She looked at Jinwoo, her face pale. All her diplomacy, all her legal frameworks, were useless against an enemy whose weapon was a faster-growing season, whose strategy was photosynthesis. They can't do this, she whispered, but the evidence on the screens laughed at her. They already have, Jinwoo replied. Hanul told us. Do not antagonize them. We did, and they didn't get angry. They got creative. And their creativity is a form of ecological terraforming. We have to leave. Now, before they decide to grow something that follows us home. For the first time, Mira had no argument. She only had a cold, dawning fear of the verdant, adapting world below, and the quiet people who had taught it how to fight. The command deck of the Whisper of Dawn was silent. The hum of the ship's systems was the only sound. The crew worked quietly, avoiding each other's eyes. On the main screen, Green Shore turned slowly below. It no longer looked like a simple garden world. It looked like a puzzle, and they had just watched it rearrange its own pieces. Mira sat in her chair, her hands flat on the console. She stared at the planet, but she was not seeing it. She was seeing the data, the biological schematics sent by the humans, the silent, eloquent threat written in DNA and pollen. The last fragments of her certainty had crumbled. They had not found primitive people. They had found gardeners who could make a jungle into a weapon by asking it nicely. Full withdrawal protocol, she said. Her voice was hollow, stripped of its usual confident edge. Recall all surface drones. Secure all data. Prepare for immediate departure from orbit. No further contact. No one argued. The order was carried out with a tense, quiet efficiency. Jinwoo stood by the viewport, watching the silver specks of the marker drones rise from the forests and hills and sea, leaving the strange, new growths behind. They had come to draw lines on a map. They were leaving because the map had grown thorns. As the last drone docked and the ship began to power its main engines, the ocean below began to glow again. The same soft, blue-white light rose from the depths. Hanul did not form a grand shape this time. The light simply spread beneath the surface, a luminous stain in the dark water, facing the ship. The voice was not a broadcast. It was a feeling that settled in the mind of every person on the bridge, a deep, resonant sorrow. You were told. The words were heavy with the weight of time, with the sadness of a teacher watching a student ignore the one, most important lesson. You saw simple hands in simple soil and believed you saw simplicity. You saw balance and called it stagnation. On the surface, Taeho and Sumin stood outside their village. They watched the council ship begin to move, its engines glowing against the twilight sky. They did not cheer. They felt no victory. They felt only the relief of a finished, difficult task. Sumin placed her hand on the trunk of a young, metal-barked tree. Taeho knelt and pressed his palm to the soil, feeling the vibrant, humming life there, slowly calming. In orbit, Hanul's thoughts continued, gentle and terrible. They do not fight like you. They do not hate like you. They do not build walls of metal and fire. When pushed, they simply change the rules of the world until you cannot stand in it. They ask the vine to grow and it grows. They ask the root to drink poison and it drinks. They make the air itself disagree with you. The light in the ocean pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. You came for the crystal in the dark. They have given it to the trees. You came for the quiet world. They have taught it to sing a song you cannot bear. Your antagonism is over. But the change has begun. It has a seed. Jinwoo closed his eyes. He understood. They hadn't just lost a negotiation. They had introduced a new variable. They had shown the humans of Greenshore that the galaxy contained forces that would not listen, that would only push. And the humans had shown what they did when pushed. And seeds. Hanul's final thought echoed, fading like the last note of a great bell. Travel on the stellar wind. The light in the ocean dimmed and vanished. The being was gone, back to its long watch. The Whisper of Dawn turned its nose from the planet and engaged its engines. With a silent flash, it leapt away from Greenshore, heading for the cold, quiet dark of the jump point. On the bridge, Jinwoo looked back one last time. The planet was a beautiful blue-green gem again. But he knew the truth. It was not the same. The humans were not the same. They had remembered something ancient in their blood. A skill deeper than engineering. A covenant with life itself. Mira finally spoke, not to anyone, just to the empty air where the planet had been. What have we done? Jinwoo had no comfort to give. We planted a seed. They warned us not to. Now we have to hope that the humans choose to keep their garden contained. And we have to hope no one else in the galaxy is foolish enough to make the same mistake. The ship slid into the faster-than-light stream. Green Shore disappeared. Below, in the gentle evening, Taeho and Sumin sat by a small fire. The strange trees stood watch at the edge of the forest. The air was clean and still. The balance was returning, but it was a new balance, one that remembered a threat from the stars. Do you think they will tell others? Sumin asked, watching the embers rise. Taeho looked up at the stars, countless and sharp. They will tell a story, but they will not understand it. They will call us dangerous. They will call us witches or monsters. They will not say the truth. What is the truth? She asked. He took her hand, his own still rough with soil. The truth is simple. We just wanted to tend our garden. And we will do anything, grow anything, to be left in peace to do so. Above them, the wind moved through the leaves of the new trees, making a soft metallic sound, like a quiet chime. A new sound for a world that had learned, once again, how to defend its silence.